This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. We're starting with a solo shot on TV. I guess that's because I got to build this up. We got Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star in here. It's happening, Dave. And this is why I think we don't even have Dave's mic on. Our heads, pets' heads are falling off. It's all good. But we have Andi Petrillo in the studio. Is that why we're doing this, JP, or are we having TV technical difficulties? I don't know. But, Andi, you're in here, and it's great to see you. Now, you don't have your mic on. You had to turn your mic on.
Is my mic on?
Before.
Oh,
this is not your first time.
I do have to, yes.
Although you've never, I don't know, have you ever sat in the middle seat? You've sat in the middle seat before.
I sat in the middle seat a couple times. I can understand why O-Dog doesn't like it. I do think the middle camera is broken, but I am having a blast just watching you.
This is great for me.
It's so uncomfortable.
No, this is exactly what I want. I'd prefer a solo shot my whole career. I don't need anyone else in the screen.
Are you making me co-host with these gremlins?
Yeah, that's
where
right.
People have to listen to them on the radio and later in the podcast, that at least on TV, just show my face.
It's all me. You guys got all dolled up for nothing. You could have just been slumming it over there.
Put some lipstick on for a whole
everyone's
lot
looking
of
good.
This is like vintage Bryan Hayes show stuff.
Yeah, this is.
The Bryan Hayes show from 2 till... Oh, there we are.
There it is. Now everyone's a part of the program. There's Andi and Dave. Now we can really get started.
I had a feeling the grand introduction was not what was actually happening.
No, me neither. But it did throw me off because we have, like, anyone listening or even watching, and you wonder how we know what screen is being used at any time. There's multiple screens, like, behind the cameras where I know what the live feed is. So I know when I'm on a solo shot. And you've texted me before, I'll get the smoky eyes going when I know it's a solo shot, right? Where if I was going to go solo for 3 hours, that really would have been smoky. Like by the end of it really would have been.
I do love when you do that. And I do text you all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, you look into my soul every time.
It's really unnecessary. It's like a really deep, smoky, more so from the home studio because I'm always, like, I'm closer to the camera and it's always like a face fronting profile the whole time. Right. Where here you get a lot of side profile. Or Andi, you're going to just be looking forward the whole time.
So here's the thing, which I notice with a lot of guys, and it's not just you, although with you it's way more noticeable, but when you're throwing to break or you're welcoming back or you're solo shot and you're throwing to something, you just don't, I don't know, it's like guys don't know how to smile.
Yeah, it's very awkward.
So I think your reaction is you push the lips a little bit and you furrow the brow a little bit, whereas with women, we just tend to kind of be a little bit more jovial, and you guys.
Yeah, you got to be very serious when you're throwing to break on a sports radio show. This is really serious stuff.
Serious stuff.
Like we're really, really breaking down some serious stuff on the show. But it's great to see you guys.
It's great to
literally
be here.
And figuratively now, having you guys up on the screen. Dave, we had you in yesterday. Andi, you haven't been on in a while, but it's great to see you.
Great to be in studio because the last few I did from home.
That's right. I saw the grappler was tackling you out in the hallway to make sure that the equipment was received. It's a really high priority. Haven't seen the grappler in weeks, but he made sure that he was kicking around to say hi. And everyone's excited. So, and we got another Leaf game tonight, right? We had a Leaf game last night. John Tavares hitting 1,000 points. And Andi, when you were doing Leafs lunch, I'm sure you talked about John all the time. I would say he kind of he's blended into the team. Like the further you get away from the signing, remember how exciting that was when he signed? We just went through it with Ohtani, with Kawhi. But the flip side of it was John Tavares, where it was not a sure thing that he was going to sign. In fact, it was really kept pretty close to the vest. Like up until July 1st, it was literally made for TV. It was a great TV production. July 1, I remember I was up north. I think it was on a Saturday or a Sunday. And the news broke. It was like 1 o'clock, 1:30, an hour and a half into free agency. And all of a sudden, we're like, boom, John Tavares is a Maple Leaf. Like we were building towards it, and it felt like it was certainly a possibility. But there had been reports out that the Islanders had offered him the 10th year or the 8th year. They were willing to give him 11 and a half. San Jose was in on it, maybe Dallas. He had done all these different meetings. And when he signed, it was bedlam. And then he had a great first year. Gets the captaincy going into his second year, I believe it was. And now here we are into his 6th year, and it's, Matthews and Marner and the playoffs and Dubas coming and go. There's been all these different storylines, but you look at John, he's just like the picture of consistency. Like, he defines just consistent. Every night it's basically the same thing. He operates the same way. And you got to give him credit because it's the eye of the storm up here in Toronto. In Toronto, you're the captain of the Maple Leafs, and it's never affected him whatsoever.
He has the best personality for it too, I think, as well. We know he doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. I remember that time, but I also think a lot of us were burned from the whole Steven Stamkos hoopla. Because there was also a real belief that Steven Stamkos was going to come to Toronto, or at least that he was going to leave Tampa. Obviously, ends up staying with Tampa. And I think with Tavares, there was like this cautious optimism. But to be honest with you, I didn't think he'd actually be as good as he is. I'll be completely honest, because some of the scouting report coming on in was that he was getting older. A lot of people, a lot of pundits who know way more than I, did and do, we're saying, the Leafs, that contract's not going to look good in a few years. If there's one knock that he has against them is he doesn't have the foot speed, never really had it, but it's already declining. And I just thought, great, here we are all excited that a free agent finally chooses Toronto. It's a big free agent too. It's a kid coming back home and everything was great. And people are like, his foot speed's going to be done in about 3 years. So it's nice to see what he's doing.
Yeah, he's into his 6th year and it just has been consistent. Like I saw Big Head Hockey tweeted this out last night, and they are reputable.
Okay, Big Head Hockey?
Big Head Hockey. It's a real site.
Reputable.
They do very good work. They posted this. I should have sent it to the TV guys. This is my bad. But we can post it later. I'll reference it now. But John Tavares, in his last 5 seasons as an Islander, he averaged 0.98 points per game, 0.42 goals per game, 0.56 assists per game, 3.26 shots per game. With the Leafs, 0.98 points per game into his 6th season now, the exact same percentage. 0.42 goals per game, the exact same percentage. 0.56 assists per game, the exact same percentage. 3.24 shots per game, 0.2 less than his 5 years that concluded his time in Long Island. So in other words, what he was leading up to the contract, getting the contract, statistically, it's been the exact same. Yeah. Now, the cap not going up because of COVID obviously affected the numbers. He is not an $11 million player anymore based on like pure production and everything he brings to the table. But he's not a $3 million guy.
No.
And that's, I think, the best compliment you can give a guy who signs in his late 20s a big contract. Just went through it with Shohei Ohtani. If Shohei's hitting 45 bombs in 6 years, that means he was probably worth every penny in it.
Yes.
And that's what Tavares has managed to do.
But just like Shohei, with the $700 million over 10 years, it's just hard to live up to contracts like this, right? When
you never
they're
really do you?
Yeah. And the problem for Tavares, I think, is, look, he's been a consummate pro. You're right. He's got a great, never too high, never too low personality, never fazed by anything. But the problem is the team hasn't given the fans what the fans want, right? And just like the team didn't give the fans what the fans wanted in Long Island when he won one playoff series in those, 9 years?
Yeah, he was there for 9 years.
9 years in Long Island. And they won one playoff series here. And it's not a fault of John Tavares. It's a fault of roster construction, you can make the case, right? Because getting Tavares was getting a guy you didn't need. They didn't need another forward. They didn't need another $11 million forward. They needed, guess what? The thing we talk about every day on this station. More D, maybe a little more eye toward the goal. Yeah. And I mean, so that'll be the interesting thing here. Like, they've still got time to rewrite the narrative of this era of Leafs hockey, right? They've still got time. Got another playoff run coming, you would think, unless something really bad happens between now and April. But I think the ultimate story of John Tavares' tenure here, unless something does change in the playoffs, is great addition, wonderful guy, excellent captain, terrible results in the playoffs.
Yeah, that said, I was having a conversation with someone the other day about how we focused on this team and their lack of playoff success for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years, which is wild. They finally win a playoff round, and it's on his stick.
Yeah.
And I don't think that gets enough attention.
That's valid.
And I can look myself in the mirror on that. I got a microphone. I talk as much as anybody in this city in terms of this team and, driving narratives and conversations and all that. And I think a part of it was the confusion because the play, it was like everyone thought Morgan Riley scored it,
right?
Which was kind of bedlam, and the way it went in and the way it was called and the way, the aftermath of it. And then they fall flat against Florida the next round, which definitely takes something away from it.
And by the way, he didn't score a goal against Florida.
Right.
At 1 point against Florida.
I understand that. But in terms of
that's what we're talking about.
That is the aftermath of it.
That's why we can't celebrate the great moment, because immediately after the great moment,
so there can't be any great moments unless it's the ride is complete.
Okay, well, you can celebrate it. I don't hear you celebrating it.
I'm asking
you're Mr. Leaf fan.
I'm asking you.
No.
I feel like it's the taste that's
so
left
it's not
in your mouth.
worthy of being mentioned that John Tavares scored the goal that punched a ticket that no other team had done and no other player on this team had done in 18 years.
No, I agree.
That seems probably worthy of.
I think it's worthy, but I also agree with Fez. It's like the way they went down in the second round too.
It was terrible.
It wasn't a good fight.
No.
Because then at least you could be like, oh, not only did they finally get over the hump of getting past that first round, man, was it a doozy of a second round. But we can't say that. It just felt like it was wah, wah. And honestly, I'm getting PTSD right now of all the years that we are literally speaking about the exact same thing that we talked about every single day.
That's the problem.
On Leafs Lunch.
Yeah. No,
Why have things not changed with this team?
Listen, obviously they don't have the answer for it, or if they do, they chose not to apply it because they keep bringing the same core guys back.
Right.
And yet, you look at what they've done early in the season. This is why. They're 14-6-5, and were they fourth in the East? They're picking up points every single night. That's why, because it's very intoxicating to basically have a guarantee you're going to make the playoffs. And then you're rolling the dice every year that things are just going to break your way. Because they broke against Tampa. We all watched Tampa. They went 3-0 on the road in Tampa. All three, I believe, were in overtime.
Yep.
They got 3 bounces. I thought Tampa collectively over the course of the series was better than the Leafs. Mm-hmm. But it broke their way.
It did.
So they're hoping that just keeps happening 4 times. That is basically their plan here. And they're going to try to augment this roster with some help, defensively, and hope a goalie gets hot. There's different ways that it can come together.
But can I ask you this?
And I'm not saying he deserves a statue. I'm just, we're here, we're pumping the tires of John Tavares, which is very deserved because he just hit 1,000 points last night.
Yeah.
And he's when you look at the stats and the way he's played, and he doesn't get injured. He doesn't take nights off. He plays all the time. He's not an embarrassment to the team or the city or anything like that. And then on top of it, it's like, man, we were pining for them to finally win something, and he was the one that actually supplied it. And it doesn't seem to come up much.
Well,
it doesn't.
No, it doesn't come up much.
Where it's an accolade that I think is worthy of being certainly on his resume as a Maple Leaf.
Sure. But I think for me, I also feel like, that to me is an isolated moment. When I do look at the Toronto Maple Leafs as a whole, though, maybe that's where you and I, Dave, are just getting a little kind of ahead of ourselves. So, yes, let's show John Tavares love. He deserves it. I just finished saying he hasn't completely fallen on his face with a longer deal, a bigger deal. He's been capped in consistency, and I think a lot of people will nod their head and say he's been a really good addition. I am with you, though, where other people can still look and say, didn't need him, that type of money, what could have been. Mm-hmm. And I also think I look at the Leafs this year, what's different? With all due respect, they've also 12 times they've gone into extra time. This is a team where they're playing a fun regular season style of play. This is not giving me any kind of confidence heading into the playoffs.
Right, but
this type
December,
of play
though.
does
it's
nothing.
December. Yeah. This is what
I don't see a
understand.
difference. I guess that's my point, is I actually don't see a difference.
And you weren't going to get one because they brought back the core 4 and Riley and Brody and McCabe and Keefe and Samson up. The skeleton of the team was kept intact, right? So they've made some additions. I think Tyler Bertuzzi was great again last night. I've really liked this game recently. I think he's really found a role. He's been a good addition. Max Domi, he wasn't great last night, but I think he's been better since he moved to the middle of the ice. I think you even, there's an element of, again, we try to break this team down based on what's it going to look like come the playoffs, and I understand that because of the history of this team. I get it. That's the nature of the fan base is, okay, this is great, but we've done this before. How is it going to apply in April? And even when you look at the defensemen that are punching in, they are replacement players. That is quite literally what they are. And the amount of blowback. Well, it's William Lagesson. Yeah, it's William Lagesson. Like he's replacing Mark Giordano. And you've got, Benoit out there, and Timmins is stepping in. These are not everyday guys, but I actually think they're doing pretty well considering what the expectation is.
Yeah.
And I think, if anything, I would come back to the best way to change the view is the best players play better at times. Like I thought Matthews was phenomenal last night. I think Tavares has been pretty good this year. I think Nylander's been very, very good, if not great at times. Mitch Marner has not.
No.
5-on-5, Mitch Marner has been nowhere close to the 13th best player in the league, or whatever he is. Because, we do the list every single year, and he's always in the top 15, and he deserves to be first-team All-Star, 97 points, 99 points. That's a guy that should be going out against an Islander team and be dominating 5-on-5. But when he doesn't, it's like we revert back to, Reeves is doing this, and you got Bill Lagesson, and it's like, well, what about the guy making 11 that's in his prime that could easily make us stop talking about them as much because of how good he is and how good he's capable of playing. And,
I'm a pessimist at heart.
I understand that, Andy, and generally I am too.
Because
don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying the Leafs are going to win the cup or this team can win a cup the way they're constructed. I don't believe they can. I don't believe they
don't have
will.
faith in the goalies. I think the goalies are getting destroyed as well. They're going to be exhausted come
Here's
playoff
the thing,
time.
maybe look.
It's just such a dark way to approach the whole season.
It's all going to just blow up in April. It's horrible. They have no money to do anything come trade deadline.
If you want to be a contrarian, I'm always looking for another way to look at it because you're right, Andy. We've been talking about a lot of the same things for a lot of years now.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe there is a contrarian view here on this season. Like you look at it, they're winning by comeback an awful lot. Like they're showing. Brendan Shanahan was making this argument to Gino the other day down at the Board of Governors meeting, basically saying, we don't have a lot of regulation wins. I think only one team has fewer, but we also don't have a lot of regulation losses.
Right.
Only one team has fewer. We are coming back in games. When we're down 2 goals, we can come back.
They've done it Boston and the Islanders last night.
Multiple times. They did it again last night. So, we're not locking down games clinically. We're not taking, that to win by shutout like they did against Nashville. First time they had a shutout. The first time in 9 games they actually won by something more than 1 goal or were involved in a game that was more other than a 1-goal game. Yeah, they haven't been anything close to a defensive lockdown juggernaut, but maybe there's something to be said for playing a different way, playing a little bit loosey-goosey, using a little bit more of your powers of, sort of improvisation and strike back kind of, quick hit rush team stuff. I mean, I don't know.
I think you're playing with fire as the season goes on for sure. The idea of coming back late in games, like what they did last night, it was eerily similar to what they did against Boston on Saturday night.
Okay, so you won't even let me have my contrarian take of optimism.
I agree.
I'm trying to inject some optimism into the conversation.
I'm with you. I think in the big picture, I agree with the optimism. I'm focusing specifically on scoring goals with 6 seconds left on the clock.
That's
like that very specific detail at some point is probably going to, avoid. It's not going to break your way every single time.
Good viz with Joe Tavares in the dad's box.
It was great.
Yeah.
He was jacked up.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember seeing him in the public eye at all.
No.
Like John Tavares' dad.
Nah, he's one of those good parents that
yeah, he just kind of goes about his business.
We know a lot of the other parents, but not Joe
and
Tavares.
Just lets his own kid play. But you know what, the Leafs, and this was, obviously this is exciting, but to me, I want a team where I feel like I'm on a yacht and I can enjoy a beverage and lay back and chill. With the Leafs, I'm on a speedboat and my drink is splashing in my face because it's all crazy and I don't know what to expect on any given night. I want a yacht.
You want a yacht?
You're
looking for a yacht.
A yacht. I don't want a speedboat all the time.
I understand
and I feel like that's the case with the Leafs.
And I think come playoff time, and again, they've got, 55 games until they get there. Again, it's December, and there are other teams that are in much worse position. Not that it should be about looking behind. You should look forward and say, obviously, high hopes, aspirations. This team should be held to a high standard based on how veteran they are. They're one of the oldest teams in the league. A lot of consistency in terms of the coach and the core and the star players. There should be a quote-unquote culture here like the one Boston's established year over year. Vegas is established. But, Edmonton, they're cooking now, but they're not in a great spot. Carolina's not in a great spot. Tampa's not in a great spot. Pittsburgh, not in a great spot. New Jersey, not in a great spot. Those were all teams that were locks, maybe Pittsburgh notwithstanding. But New Jersey and Carolina, it was like foregone conclusion, 115 points, maybe winning the President's Trophy, struggling. And yet I have faith in who they are and what they are, that those teams will probably dig out of it. And I guess all I'm saying is from a Leaf perspective, putting the playoffs aside, totally different conversation. And I'm not sitting here saying what they are or who they have is, in my mind, capable of winning 16 games in the spring. But I think during the regular season, they have done enough year after year after year to probably have people having faith that they'll figure this out and get to 105 points or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And be a playoff team.
Right.
Right? And that's effectively what the game plan was coming in, whether you like it or not.
We're on pace for 110, I think.
Right.
Something in that range. So
right.
It's going pretty well.
So here I am, the optimist. Who would have ever thought?
No, I'm the optimist.
You're the optimist.
The
only thing we've established is Andy's the pessimist.
Yeah. I'm the pessimist. Maybe I take it for granted that they're going to have a great regular season. And I know some of you, you can't take it. You never know if you're going to make it. But to your point, I feel like the Leafs have figured out how to get things done in the regular season, which is why call me in April.
Okay.
And we'll figure it out then.
We'll call you in April.
Call me in April.
We'll give you a shot. We'll see
how I'm feeling there.
All right.
See how I'm feeling if they're able to sign William Nylander. See how I'm feeling.
So why would you want them to re-sign William Nylander? Like that's what I can't understand is that like we don't like the way things are working out, the way things play out, the way it feels, yet we want everyone to be re-signed all the time.
I didn't say I want everyone to be with this team of that core group.
Just William and Austin, I would assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's all I need to say
that's
there.
That's where you're going to end it? Okay.
But and you know,
right.
Anyways, we'll end it at that.
No, you continue, Andy. I'm quite curious
but that's
where you're going with
that's where if you really want to make a bold move, and that's where I think there has been, I wouldn't necessarily, no, I'll say it. There's been a little bit of fear, but there's also been a little bit of, and I can appreciate this, patience, right? And I think between Brendan Shanahan and before that Kyle Dubas, it was like, look at what we have. Do not give up on them. Sports is not linear. You know, if you take 3 steps, forward, sometimes you can take 5 steps back, chill out. Let's see what Tavares can do and Mitch Marner and Matthews and Nylander all together. But I do feel like we're at the point where we are doing the insanity thing. The same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So at what point, who has the guts to say we have to approach John Tavares because he is getting older, and even though we just said he's captain consistency, he's doing great, at what point do you approach him to say, got to make room? Would you be willing to waive? At what point do you approach Mitch Marner maybe and say that if you feel William Nylander has surpassed him? Some people may not feel that way. I'm in that camp where I do feel like William Nylander has completely grown.
Absolutely better than Mitch Marner. But it's 25 games, right? There's also, these are 2 guys that came in back-to-back drafts. They started their careers effectively at the same time. There's like 8 years of data on them, right? And that's what comes, like the decision-making. That's the interesting thing about Willie. It's like, he has a hot start, and it's like now he's worth 12, and then had 10 games. Now he's worth 8. Like that's just not.
They can discuss that behind.
That.
Yeah, they can discuss that behind closed doors. But if I also look at the playoffs, I do feel like William Nylander's also been better there.
He's been a performer
for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So who's going to have the guts to really change that up? So now you can get a proper goalie and get some proper D-men.
Here, this is where I think there's actually like a connection to what we just went through with Ohtani, though, where I think there's an appreciation within the Maple Leaf organization that they have the stars, that albeit the stars were drafted and developed here, so they had to start their career here. The fact that they want to stay here means something here.
Yeah, sure.
It means something within the organization. The fact that Tavares wanted to come here, considering all of the hype and the deflated ego that came with Ohtani just never even arriving. Like, Ohtani was never coming here, and yet people were buying into it, myself included, that this would change everything if Ohtani signed here. And if Kawhi stayed, it would have changed the whole perception.
It would have. It would have won another championship, probably.
It would have. It would have. But even putting the actual wins and losses aside, we're talking about the self-esteem of the market and the self-esteem of the ownership, that players want to be here and they want to stay here and they want to be stars and they want to rewrite the record book, where the Leafs believe they have that. And I think as a result, that's what speaks to them being scared to move off it. Because if you make the wrong move, then you're going to take a step or 2 back.
Right.
And that's what it's not about, okay, having the stones to take the step or 2 forward. They're terrified it'll take a step or 2 back.
Fair point.
And
but
that's what the concern has been.
This is not some whack job talk show radio host ranting about the insanity thing, about banging your head against the wall. the same wall every day and expecting something different to happen other than you got a cracked skull. This is the guy that ran this team, Hayes. The guy that last ran this team, who got fired after the Palace coup went bad, was saying it publicly. Maybe it's time we think about a Matthew Tkachuk type trade. Like, that wasn't, maybe it's time we think about nibbling around the edges of the roster. That was taking a bite out of the core, right? That, like, it was Kyle Dubas saying that.
Right.
When they failed so badly against the Florida Panthers.
He said he's open to it. I don't believe he would have done it, but it doesn't matter anymore.
But the fact that he's publicly mulling that,
right?
Hayes, doesn't that tell you something? Of course it tells you.
Yeah, it probably spoke to a core belief that he had, or at least some sort of an inclination. Now, again, when the dust settled, the emotions wore off, I don't know if he would have done it. I don't know if he would have had the power to do it. That's another thing. That's probably another reason why he's in Pitt, because all of a sudden the chain of command has been affected a little bit. But
But, I mean, we got to, like, it's not like a small sample size anymore, right? They've played 50 playoff games.
Yeah.
In the Matthews
Marner
they are
era. What they are. The reputation in the playoffs is what it is.
Like,
I think what's become clear, and I said this a few weeks ago, and this is the difference of when, the view of the team and the potential era that was forthcoming when Matthews and Marner and Nylander all arrived at the same time. Then 2 years later, Tavares jumped on board. There were, visions of maybe a dynasty or close, or you were hoping, hey, they could win multiple. That ship is likely sailed. What you're hoping for now is an Ovechkin story.
One run.
That's what you're hoping for, is that at some point in the next 5-7 years, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner or whoever is here, they have one amazing spring. And you know what? In this market, who's gonna deny that? Like, would it be great to be greedy and win 3 like Chicago did? Or 2 like Tampa did, or over the course of Sid's career, he's got 3 and went to 4 Cup finals. It'd be amazing. Obviously, I think this market deserves it, considering how long they've been following this team and how long it's been since they even made it to a Cup final, let alone actually won one. But if you can get one, and that's what they're hoping for here,
dude,
people are going to be
incredibly
happy.
Is that the revised Shanna plan now?
I don't think they'll say it publicly.
A hope and a prayer,
but I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
How could you argue against it?
Well, no,
I don't think
you have to argue against it. You have to be thinking a little bigger than that. You have to think, how do we take what we have and get the stuff we don't have?
I think if they were going to do that, they would have done it 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, but Brad,
that's what I'm saying.
Just got here. Kyle Dubas was ready to do it. You don't think you would have done it?
I'm not
convinced if you would have done it.
No.
Listen, all I know is I was in Vegas. I was actually there for soccer, CONCACAF Nations League final when Vegas won the Stanley Cup. And I was so angry. I'm like, who do you think you are winning the Stanley Cup? When I just, for a long time, first time in a long time, saw the Leafs get to the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I was so mad.
It's that easy,
credit
Andi.
to them.
It's that easy.
I was other than the people losing their money in the casinos, I was an unhappy camper in Vegas that night.
That's tough to be unhappy in Vegas.
Exactly. People were like, yay. I'm like,
yeah, you shut your gap.
You shut your face.
How'd the soccer team? It didn't work out well either.
It didn't work out for them either.
Yeah. Some weird stuff going on with that soccer team. The men's national team, John Herdman, I guess, was speaking recently about how they were unprepared at the World Cup, and there's a lot to get into.
We can dive into that, my friend.
We'll dive into that. And the Raptors, again, last night. First time all year, OG, Scotty, and Pascal all scored 20+. Schroeder scored 20 last night, too. And they give up 136 to a team that really is not known for being an offensive juggernaut in the Knicks. That's 4 losses in a row, 6 of 7. Like, no one wants to go for dinner with Darko.
No.
That's at the core of this. Did you hear that, Andi? That Darko Rajokovic, he offered, if they won 3 in a row, he'd take them to, like, McDonald's or something. They'd go out for dinner, and he would pay. Which that's kind of, I appreciate that, but it's not really big league stuff.
No.
It's usually the players are like, even if they won 3 in a row, they'd probably say, I'd rather not go for dinner with you. You're my coach. Like,
that's just it.
It's kind of an awkward thing kind of hanging over this team.
That's like the teacher in school. If you get an A+ on this test, we'll have a pizza party after.
Right.
Like, that
the
worked
kids
when
are in
I
grade
was 12.
They're in grade 3.
Yeah.
I have an 8-year-old. She would love that. I think the 30-year-old that plays in the NBA would probably prefer not to spend an off night having dinner with Darko.
Well, the players were immediately suspect. They're like, the team's going to pay for that. You're not going to pay for that, but with your own money.
Right, exactly.
Like, why does that credit card say MLSE on it?
Right. You imagine invoicing that? Yeah, make sure I have the receipt there. I'm going to invoice that later.
But you're right. Like, I mean, this is a league where guys,
I feel for the guy because it's just a bad start.
They're giving out $500,000 per player to win some silly tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah, like dinner at the keg ain't going to do it.
No, I don't. I don't think the players are dying to ask Darko if it's okay if they get appies. Can we get some wine tonight? Are we not getting wine?
Right. That's right. How many bottles can we
What are we
order,
allowed to? Are we
Yeah.
splitting? How is this working?
Right.
We in this table? Do
You
we
have
share?
first date in your 20s. You're like, I'll have the second cheapest bottle of wine.
Yeah, as motivational.
Just in case she looked. If she looked and she went for the cheapest, it's like, that's not the one you got.
Seriously.
Yeah, I got the
Just
second
get the house wine.
cheapest.
Like whatever the house wine is. Just have a glass of
House
that.
wine's
Thank you very
always
much.
great.
That's the.
Yeah, house
That's
wine
the
would be
move.
great, please.
They've gone, well, they haven't done much since he said that. I wonder if there's a connection.
9-14. They're like, and now we'll get into it with Leo. Leo Rowden's coming up. He also, like, Darko made a weird comment, I thought, today about the starting rotation because he's getting peppered every day. Like, are you going to change something here? You guys are getting caved in, which they are, especially the starts of game. They've been awful all year. And he said he wants to wait another game or two, which I think speaks to his inexperience as a head coach, because I think a grizzled vet would never give a timeline to the media, ever.
No.
Like, he'd either say, no, I'm not changing it, or yes, I'm changing it. But he'd never be like, give me a game or two and then circle back. Like, I don't recall hearing a guy
He's done
ever.
he's done a lot of stuff that you don't see very often. Like the whole idea that he was going to make a list of 10 guys that he's using tonight and then tell those 10 guys, you're one of the 10 guys.
Right.
So be ready. Like, no one does that. Why would you do that?
I can think
Maybe I don't want to use you now. I mean,
I
the
know.
game gets going, and I think I'm not using Gary Trent.
Because the other coach is using a different rotation than you were
That's
expecting.
right. Or maybe Chris Boucher doesn't strike my fancy tonight. But I told Chris I'm going to play him. I better play him.
Well, I think Grady Dick got that last night.
Yeah.
And he played 2 minutes or whatever.
He'll learn. Remember Paul Maurice, his first year? They asked his expectations. He's like, playoffs? That didn't go over too well.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Manning, Toronto FC, because they had that epic road thing a couple years back to start because of the construction going on.
Right.
They asked how many points he expected to pick up on the road. He said the points. They didn't hit it. That didn't go over too well.
Yeah.
Darko will learn.
Yeah, you've got to be more reserved.
Vague.
Like I appreciate the honesty. I just don't know if I believe it. I don't believe it's 1 or 2 games that you're. And what are you looking for? It's like that just sounds like Masai, where it's like we're evaluating. It's like, guys, you've played 23 games. What else are you evaluating here? Like, you're well into the season. It's December now.
Well, I mean, this is the ultimate, disingenuous team building exercise because Masai Ujiri ripped his team last year,
Right.
and then didn't change it.
Yeah.
And now it's different because you got a new coach that's going to buy everybody happy.
Well, that was supposed to be the big part. The biggest change was going to be a new voice and a new approach in Darko, and it obviously is not materialized yet. So it is a Tuesday. Confirm and deny coming up. We'll get to that later this afternoon. We got Bruce Boudreau on the show today. The Leafs are back in action down in New York playing the Rangers. You can watch that on TSN 4. Andi Petrillo's in here. Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star. I'm Bryan Hayes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Catch Molson Canadian Leafs hockey on TSN 1050. Thursday night, Leafs, Blue Jackets.
What a shot!
Puck drops at 7 on TSN 1050. The Leafs live here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We've got Trey Wingo later this afternoon, get his take on the 2 football games last night. And my Packers, man, they did it to me again. Do you know how many times they've done that this year? Where they've had leads in the fourth quarters against bad teams, thrown games away.
Right, but
sickening.
What does that have to do with anything? Your boy Al's brother
That's right.
came through.
I was burying the lead there, allowing you're an objective bystander, to pump the tires of Al's brother and Hazenbro because we're on fire right now.
Are you leading?
4 in a row now?
No, we're not winning,
Four
but
in a
we've
row?
won 4 in a row.
4 in a row.
Yeah, we're actually still kind of getting dummied a little bit. But there's a
comeback
long
trio.
season, and we're starting to really see the board, and those 2 idiots aren't seeing anything.
Oh.
And that's what's really, I think, impressive of our most recent run. Because as a Packer fan last night, I hated betting against them, but it was clearly the right play. Giants money line last night. That Packers defense, they cannot get a big stop when they need to.
Look at you using your head.
It was
not your
it was
heart.
money line.
Exactly.
It was not Monday Night Football. It was money line.
Football. And the same thing with Miami throwing that game away against Tennessee.
How
they
do
had a
you lose
14-point lead with 7 minutes to go or whatever it was?
How do you lose that?
That's crushing because they're like it was on a tee for them. Obviously, at home against Tennessee, you're up big late. That's the first seed that may have been thrown out the window last night in Miami. Like if you're Baltimore, you're ecstatic. Obviously, Kansas City's still alive. The Bills technically could still catch Miami. It's not going to happen. It's not likely to happen, but they still play Miami, I think, Week 18 in Miami. So it's like everyone in the AFC just doesn't really want that top seed.
No.
It feels that way. And then in the NFC, it's the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and then I don't know who the fourth best team is in the NFC. Like we're trying to figure that out.
What happened to your Eagles, Petrillo?
No defense went on vacation the last 2 games.
Yeah, they got crushed.
We're gonna make this fun down the stretch, is what they said.
Motorboat. Was it motorboat or speedboat? I better get that right.
They're not a yacht. They're not a yacht.
A yacht. That's what you wanted. A yacht. A yacht. That's what you're looking for as a sports fan.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
They're like, let's just give everybody a 30% chance of finishing first. They just wanted to even out the playing field, make it fun down the stretch.
Right. They're very charitable, the Eagles.
Yes.
But listen, how about that Danny DeVito?
Wow.
Where are you at with Danny DeVito, your guy? Are you a Danny DeVito? Obviously, you're an Eagle fan, so you probably hate the Giants. But, this is a cool story. This is a guy no one had ever heard of before. Third-string quarterback. His agent's on the field before the game for some reason.
That is a look.
Looking like a mobster.
That is a look.
Sean Stellato with the, what kind of hat?
Fedora?
I guess
what
it's
is
a fedora.
That? He just needed the feather. He's just missing the feather in it.
That's like Al Capone's crew.
I don't believe for a second anyone was on that phone.
No.
Perfectly.
That was him faking.
Camera time.
Yeah, that was him
time.
on the camera pretending as if he was, calling in deals for Danny DeVito.
There is everything about that's that's my childhood. Those are all my uncles right there. Even though you're wearing a hat, your hair is still perfectly gelled.
Right.
Because you never know if that hat's going to come off. It's the black and it's slimming, but also makes you look dangerous. It's the gold chain. It's the stern look.
Everything about that.
Everything about it.
Yeah, it was. I guess he bought. I think it was Scott Van Pelt might have been saying, or someone was tweeting about it that he bought that hat in New York before the game, specifically understanding. Because I don't recall seeing agents on the field before games too often. What is the protocol on that?
About I don't know.
Maybe the NFL is just different beast. I don't know. But usually you would think if you're Danny DeVito, you're a young guy trying to make it, you don't want to be looked upon as a guy who's not paying attention to the game or not preparing. And you're sitting there with Sean Stellato and his, chapeau and breaking down deals off the field. What are they doing?
I mean, it's an incredible story. The New York media is just having a feeling.
Loving this.
Too. Did you see they had the New York Post and all the papers had pictures upon pictures of the tailgate his mom and dad put together?
Right. The amount of food.
300 people. They had the cutlets.
Dude,
and the baked ziti.
If you're going to do it, you better do it right or you're an embarrassment.
It was incredible.
Reputation
rice balls.
There's no way. That was catered, right?
I don't know.
You can't possibly make that much food.
My Zia Filomena can make a lot of food.
Andi, you got to see that.
She catered a wedding she catered a wedding. We had this, maybe there was about 100 people. She did it.
Really?
She did it. She made her gnocchi.
Look at this.
Look at how much food that is. There's no way. I don't think it's possible someone sitting there making that food,
but
leading up to Monday Night Football. That's got to be catered.
Even when to my family, just so we know, did not cook at my wedding. I was at a proper venue. However, all my Zias and all the little nonni said, we will continue to make the cookies. They have to make the cookies. It might be more of an abruzzese thing, but they are hell-bent on the pizzelle or the almond types of cookies or the, cannoli.
But that's a traditional thing. That's not a tailgate at the Giants.
They have to make it. But when I say cookies, Hayes, it is hundreds upon hundreds of cookies.
Just a completely unnecessary amount of cookies.
You put them in the freezer, and then when guests come over, you take them out, you defrost. You have cookies for the rest of the year to serve your guests.
All right.
It's an incredible story.
Okay.
It's an incredible story.
I was not aware of that.
I have a feeling that was probably catered as well, but I think there was probably some homemade stuff thrown in there as well.
I'm sure there was.
Because that would not surprise me one bit.
I'm just saying, 300 people are showing up. And like the pregame, they kept showing the one Packer fan kid that was in there somehow.
Just getting in line.
Yeah, it's like,
getting in line.
How'd you get in there?
Just,
He's like, yo, is that lasagna?
Yeah, I'll take that. The guy's from Wisconsin. Kid's name's Gary or something. He's like, what do you have over here?
Tailgating thing. Like sometimes, like if you've been tailgating down in Orchard Park, I'm sure, Hayes, like at the Bills games. Like,
oh, it's a wild
therapy. Like some people have such elaborate spreads and so much food. You just happen to be walking by. They're like, hey, you want something? Like, hey, take something.
Oh, it is really like a community. Yeah. And they're there. Like the amount of fans that go and tailgate without tickets, I always find amazing.
They're just there for the party.
They're just there. They're like, go ahead, we're staying out here. Like, and when you come out afterwards, if they win, we'll still be here. I guess if they lose, we'll still be here. Or they leave at the half and
beat
go home.
The traffic.
Or whatever. Yeah, it really is a lifestyle, and it's an incredible story. The DeVito kid, and like what he can do is he's mobile. He runs.
Yeah.
Like his arm, he only threw for like 5 yards or something last night. It wasn't a ton, but he ran for like 80 yards.
Incredible.
And it's a crushing loss for the Packers. I'm not surprised by it. I said it last week. I said it yesterday. You're on the show. Youngest team in the league. Classic, like, letdown game. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened last night. But I kind of liked the two games on Monday Night Football, I have to be honest. Yeah. Like, and they were both coming down Broadway at the same time. Like, it was crunch time, and it was like, man, this feels eerily similar to like 3:45 on a Sunday.
Right.
That's what I kind of love.
That's what they were going for, I guess.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to make sense to me.
No, there's no staggered time, but it seemed to work. I don't know last night. I don't know if you had the same experience, but I kind of liked it.
I thought it was good.
And primarily watching the Packer game, admittedly, but sometimes they would double box it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like Will Levis is charging.
Yeah.
I'll track that at the same time.
No, you had to be flipping back and forth. You had to be
for
on
sure.
The ball with the flipper.
For sure. All right. Bruce Boudreau in 20 minutes.
Nice.
Very exciting stuff.
Nice.
Confirm and deny in about 45 minutes. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Catch Molson Canadian Leafs hockey on TSN 1050. Thursday night, Leafs, Blue Jackets.
What a shot!
Puck drops at 7 on TSN 1050. The Leafs live here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Everybody get your roll on. I know shorty and she doesn't want no.
All right, Bruce Boudreau in about 15 minutes. Confirm and deny at 5:30. You see Rob Ray take a puck to the face last night.
Oh, my Lord.
And, like, he's so tough. He just, like, right off his forehead, immediately starts bleeding and doesn't even think about missing a play.
Oh, no.
Right? And he's been hit a lot. Like, if you're in between the benches, you're getting hit. Like, it's just a matter of time. Remember last year, Noodles took a really vicious, I think, high stick.
Yeah, that's right.
The black eye going for a bit.
Yeah, we were on the panel. We were doing, like, the OverDrive Leaf panel the next night, and he came in, and it was, like, he got beat up pretty badly, man. He was at bad place.
Johnny lost a watch. Remember MJ?
Yes.
He had like a puck or something, hit his watch, exploded. Ray's
been hit. Like, everyone's been hit. If you're down there, it's just a matter of time. But Rob Ray takes one, like, right off the forehead.
Right between the eyes.
And just doesn't even flinch.
And no one saw that puck ever
He just,
again.
he wadded up some Kleenex like it was like a shaving cut.
Yeah.
Like it was no big deal.
Yeah. He's like, just keep going. Yeah. It's like, okay, Ray. Like, maybe you should go to the hospital. But whatever you think, man.
That is scary between those benches. When I used to do the interviews in the pregame show, right? So you got to, like, stand there during warm-up and the player skates up to you and you do it. You don't realize how fast they're going. The air, like, your hair is just blowing back. I'm like, this is speedy down here. I have zero protection. And then, I mean, the players are aware, so they're pretty smart about it. They're respectful. But, like, when you're doing an interview, you're not paying attention. Like, you can't. You physically are leaning into the player, the camera. You're just, like, praying that nobody's wiring a shot.
Like, ricochets around the glass.
There's nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do.
You're absolutely helpless at
Well, you
that
see
point.
that in soccer a lot. I find is that, like, I think the guys are trying to hit people, like the reporters that are doing sideline reports, and you just see the ball flying in slow motion.
I hope
you ever
not.
been hit?
No, but it's damaging. My husband one time, and he actually gets really upset, and he feels it should be mandated during warm-up to have nets go up, because one time when he was just wiring balls, there was like a flat kind of, just like, it was a hill where he was playing like in San Jose, and a woman was there and she had her baby lying down, and the ball just bounced next to the baby's head, and my husband was beside himself. He's like, I cannot live with that on my conscience.
Yeah.
He wired another ball a couple of years ago, hit a fan in the head during warm up, and he's like, we just need nets up. But yeah, one time I had a producer who was like, it's going to be really great for you to stand right here, right beside the net to do your opening hit while they're practicing PKs. I'm like, is that a great idea? Is it? Because they don't always hit the net,
exactly.
you jack.
And it's not the player's fault if they're just warm. Like they don't. Again, I'm convinced there have been football players that have thrown footballs and intentionally hit someone, probably trying to hit him in the leg. It gets away from them, gets them in the back or the head. Because there are a bunch of viral videos out there of sideline reporters getting hit.
Oh yeah,
and it's ugly.
Can't be an accident. All the
exactly.
time.
Like
if
they're way off the side of the field and the ball is like perfectly it's like, come on, dude. You may not have been thinking I'm going to hit that person, but you were trying to like buzz the tower.
They should never do that. Pam Oliver, didn't she for the longest time have all these like issues with concussions when she got hit in the head with a football and then just was dealing with headaches and like it's not. If you have really good aim and you want to like hit a ball at someone's ass, go right ahead. That's funny. But like other than that, be careful, man. You hit someone in the head, that is like dangerous.
Yeah, and like sideline reporting or anyone on the sideline of a football game is dangerous because if someone's running out of bounds and they're flying, they like the amount of guys who have been taken out and had their like blown Achilles and knees been blown out. And if you're not looking, camera guys who just get smoked, who are like panning to the crowd, and all of a sudden someone like just a monster, 270-pound monsters running out of bounds.
You're very vulnerable when you're working a game because you're focusing on so many other things. Like I know fans, it's like keep your eye on the field of play as you should, but like when you're working a game, you're just kind of going around everywhere. You're pretty vulnerable.
Yeah, you're preoccupied.
Yeah.
Like you're doing something.
Yeah.
You're working. The game is almost secondary in a way. I mean, it's dangerous stuff.
It is scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I've been fortunate where I haven't been hit, but I've been in situations where I'm like, if I get hit,
you're going down. Yeah, really like bad. You're not going to pull a Rob Ray and just patch it up.
No, I will cry. I will get all the paramedics' attention.
Yeah.
You name it.
I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce Boudreau coming up on the Leafs last night. The Leafs are in New York playing the Rangers tonight, and Connor versus Connor as well. You got Bedard playing McDavid in Edmonton tonight. We'll get to that as well. Confirm and deny at 5:30. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.